Hey guys, Sheet the Geek here with a YouTube video. I know it's been a really long time. I've been busy working. I mentioned before I work in retail, so this time of the year, October, November, December is the busiest for me. It's really hard for me to get videos out and stream. Today I wanted to do a video on going under. I recently just started playing this game. A friend of mine on Twitter or someone I followed posted a little snippet of it, and I was very fascinated by the game. Let me turn the music down just a tiny bit. Don't need the music that loud. I don't have to verify anything. Okay. So basically with the game, this is a roguelike game. I'm not gonna go too much into the backstory or details about it, but I actually got stuck in this game not too long ago, and when I tried to go online to find information on the game, I actually couldn't find anything. I was actually pretty surprised. The game had a good reception, good feedback. It's a popular game, a lot of people like it. It did come out sort of kind of during the global pandemic, so I think a lot of people missed this game or didn't really see it because obviously there was other stuff going on. But there's like nothing on Google, YouTube, even Reddit. I could barely find any information on this game, outside of very poorly done, beginner tip blog posts, skill ratings, which I will get into skills, but the skill ratings that I found online were pretty terrible. And some very poorly done walkthroughs, which this is not going to be a walkthrough. This is more going to be an advanced tip guide, which I think this game desperately needs online somewhere. Like even on the going under Reddit is almost dead. Most of the posts are from 2 to 3 months ago with any useful information in them if you were looking for something. And like I said, YouTube was very little help. I found maybe one YouTuber that did some guides for mentorship mastery. I forget his YouTube name, but that's really all I could find information wise, and even then that still wasn't enough. Most of the information people were looking for is like the best skills, strongest builds, the mentorship guides, which I mentioned. There's a guy on YouTube that does have that, but really more so advanced tips for people who've got the game, got into it, they really like it, but they want to keep progressing through the game and they get stuck and they don't know what to do. So I'm going to try to help out with that a little bit. I haven't beaten the post game yet, the second part where everyone's a fish person. I'm still working on that. I do want to go over some of the skills. I do think I have most of the good ones. Kind of gonna start there, and then I'll go over the beginning part of the game really quick. I'm not actually gonna play it out, but basically the beginner part of the game, you really only need Swamp for the first part of the game, all the way through the first 3 boss fights and then the Mar fight. You really can do it with Swamp. The first part of the game is learning the skills and the abilities. Learning how to dodge roll is super important. Learning the enemy's attack patterns. You can pretty much brute force the entire first part of the game, like downright. I just used Swamp and he got me through the whole thing. His ability to take a random item from the cafe is just super useful. His cubes can give you items, can give you rare items that break, but they're also helpful for trying to burst down stronger enemies with like high HP or armor. This one as well, starting each floor with homies, is super useful, especially with one of the skills which is called I forget what it's called. This one, team player. If you would take damage, your allies take it instead. If you get this skill with Swamp, or if you have like an ability like this where you have friends that you have charmed, it's just, that's probably one of the stronger ability combos in the entire game right there, is just having those two. And with Swamp on level 3, basically gets you there through the entire first part of the game. His max skill, which is basically on floor 2 in one of the rooms on each dungeon, Swamp will actually be there. He'll have a room where you can get food, I think it's skill, and I think he fully restores your HP. In the first part of the game, this is not very useful, believe it or not, because you really shouldn't be worrying about dying. Getting two or three good skills in the first part of the game will just carry you through a dungeon, and you can beat the whole thing without really trying too hard. And you can, like I said, brute force everything basically with the right skills. Just an example, the skill I use for the first part of this game, which a lot of guides say is pretty not good, is when I find it, there it is. Scaled up, big business just got bigger. This basically makes your character model bigger. Your so Jackie is a bit bigger, but also it's that +1 damage right there. That's the important part. This is one of the skills you get early on in the game when you first start, and it seems like just like a cosmetic thing, because it doesn't really benefit you at all, but the +1 damage really comes in handy. This does stack with other abilities, so I mean, at some point, like, you could have scaled up and then another skill which I think is really good, Beggar Queen. You're at +3 damage. That's pretty insane for this game. That allows you to just burst down a lot of smaller enemies and even bosses with the right combination of skills, which is important. But that's all the first part of the game. The second part of the game is where it gets really hard, which is where I'm at right now. All the enemies are stronger and the bosses are stronger. For the first dungeon, which is the 10 times caffeinated boss, you can pretty much stick with Swamp and still get through it. You can, once you learn his attack pattern, you can probably still burst him down with some slightly better skills. He's not too hard. When you get to Winky Dink and then the Styx coin level, that's when it gets super hard, because now you're dealing with a lot of environment damage and you're dealing with a lot of armored bosses that have bonus health that are very hard to kill. Swamp will more than likely not be good for the second part of the game unless you're like amazing at this type of game and great at dodge rolling and you always get the right skills. Max mentorship becomes much more important. For Winky Dink, I actually had to use Ray and his car, which I'll show that in a second. But as for skills, some of these skills are cosmetic. Basically, they don't really help you at all. They're not very good. Those are the skills you want to avoid. You want the skills that actually do something. That being said, this one, downsized, this skill is almost mostly cosmetic. This skill is not very good. Some guys will say this is good because you're harder to hit, which is true because your character size is smaller. However, you don't get any benefit from it. Like, there's no damage boost, there's no like really stat boost for speed or agility. Really, you are a little bit faster, but that doesn't really count in this game for a whole lot, if you're not getting some other type of benefit with it. There is a downside to this ability that isn't mentioned, is that because you're smaller, when you get hit, you actually take more damage because you have, I guess, less stamina because of your height or your size. So this ability is not very good. But like I mentioned before, like ability like Scaled Up is a very good ability because it does give you something. A lot of guys say this is bad because it makes your character model bigger, which makes you a bigger target, so enemies is easier to hit you. But in reality, it's like you still virtually have the same speed. You can still dodge roll. Being bigger doesn't really mean a whole lot if you're getting a damage boost on top of it, and that damage boost stacks with other skills that you may or may not get. So I say this is actually a really good starting game skill. This Beggar Queen's really good because it's +2, but you get less money. In the second half of the game, this is probably not the skill you want to have because you really need your money to buy food. The first part of the game, you really don't need to worry about buying food, because you really shouldn't be dying that much. But you can brute force the whole first part of the game if you get this skill maxed up and start using it. So scaled up, Beggar Queen are two of my personal favorites. Some other ones that really do work well. The people person, gain more strength when people are nearby. So when you go in a room with a lot of enemies, your damage goes up. Now it will also decrease when there's less enemies, but this lets you get through a crowded room a lot easier with a really good weapon. And for weapons, for the second part of the game, you really want the long-reaching weapons. The hockey stick, or the double hockey stick, the pitchforks. A lot of the long-range weapons from Winky Dink are very good. Now, obviously, those don't appear in the Joblin offices or Styx coin, but those are weapons you want to prioritize because they're great. And this skill seems pretty dumb, but with like the hockey stick, which is a two-handed weapon, you're now swinging this thing like the hand picture in this image. It's kind of like a little one-handed club where you're swinging it super fast and you're still getting the damage bonus off of it. This skill is actually very good for Winky Dink as well if you can get it. I wouldn't first pick this, but it's also a very good skill. And then for Winky Dink and maybe even Styx coin, another skill you want to have maxed out and unlocked is invincible, or no, disaster proof. You're unaffected by fire, ice, and electricity. This is super useful because a lot of the Winky Dink enemies, level 1 is mostly fire, and then level 2 is mostly ice. This basically negates that, and in combination with Ray's car, which again I'll show you in a second, is you really don't have to worry about dying. Other than that, the cloud is actually very useful. Even though it attacks randomly, this cloud has saved my butt so many times. This cloud is another good skill. This one, you wouldn't first pick this either, or the team player, but this skill is very good. The chance to charm enemies, the chance actually happens very often that you'll charm an enemy, especially if you're using like a very fast weapon that's hitting multiple times. The chance increases, so that really is to your benefit to have that. I don't throw a lot of weapons, so the throwing skills don't really matter to me too much, but that is playstyle dependent. Self-starter also does work, also does come in handy sometimes. This one can help you get through the shielded enemies very quickly. If you go into a room right away, you see the strongest enemy, you just go for them, because this only lasts for about 10 seconds when you enter a room, but it's still very useful. This one's kind of 50-50. It really depends on the room. Getting basically 4 extra health in trade-off for 1 is really good, but what the game doesn't tell you is that you do lose the heart container, but that heart container is permanently gone. So say for part 2 of the game, because you have 6 health, because you got the 3 hearts, you're now down to 5. So if you lose all 5 shields, or your 4 shields, you don't get those back unless you find another item, and so now you're down to 5 hearts for the rest of the run. So if you're really good at dodge rolling and not getting hit, this is probably the skill for you. If you can get this one, this one's super useful. I already mentioned this one. Larger than charge seems kind of like a trolley cosmetic weapon, kind of like downsize, but making your weapons bigger in this game is actually very beneficial. Similarly to scaled up, because your character is bigger, that increases your reach, and having a longer reach to hit more enemies in a room from your standing position is actually very, very good. I wouldn't first pick larger than charge, but it is actually very useful, especially in Winky Dink with the hockey sticks and the double hockey sticks and the pitchforks. Those become very long, extended ranged weapons that can hit enemies from halfway across the room, and you're safe from a lot of their, melee range attacks. See, Bomb Dropper comes up the first part of the game. It can be really good, especially for the Marv fight. If you're really struggling killing a boss, but you're okay with dodge rolling, Bomb Dropper can potentially help you. You just have to watch out for like the explodey boxes, because those will come back and hurt you. Bomb dropper can be a very good skill. Not so much the second part of the game. Similarly to scaled up, but it's still very good if you can get it in the first part of the game. It can really come in handy on boss fights mostly, or crowded rooms. And I believe that's pretty much the only ones I wanted to mention. A lot of people use this skill, but it involves you getting hit, which you don't want to get hit. So can you really say this is a good skill because of that? I don't really think so, but some people do like this. I think the extended invincibility, I believe, is only for maybe like 5 seconds. It's not a super long time. It's not like having actual invincibility, but this is like the next best thing. And I don't think that any of the other ones are that great. There's some more here I haven't unlocked, but realistically, the ones I mentioned are the ones that you really want to focus on when you get them. Scaled up, you definitely want to get large and in charge. Bomb dropper can be super useful. The unapproachable can also be useful, but it's kind of, once you get something better like bomb dropper or scaled up, this is not very good. But if you get this skill first, go ahead and work on this one, because it's basically like another attack that you automatically do. Freehand, overprotective, stealth starter, beggar queen, absolutely. Move fast and break things sometimes. People person, the personal cloud, win friends and influence monsters, team player, disaster proof, absolutely for the second part of the game. You definitely have to have this for the second part of the game. And then emotive can also combo with team player, because each time you get hit you make a slime enemy as an ally. So already there you see how the combo works. If you get these two skills together, you're just not dying, because the enemies, even the bosses, they won't be able to hit your actual HP if you keep spitting off another guy that will then take the hit for you. But you have to have at least one guy to start with, or this doesn't really work. You need to have at least one guy before this will trigger, and you stop taking like hit damage. Just watch out for fire, because I think fire will still burn through that. Also this skill. As for the other skills that stack, I mentioned scaled up and large and in charge. They work well together. So yeah, so I'm actually going to show you mentor abilities and which ones are very useful for different parts of the game. So basically the mentors you want to focus on is Swamp. Absolutely, he's number one, especially for the first part of the game. And then I would say Ray, then Fern, then Tappy, then Kara. I'm not a fan of the random sodas or the random apps. Some of them are really good, but they have to pop up for you to get them to really get the benefit of them. Fern does have the invincible soda, which is absolutely great, but you have to randomly come across that to get it. You can't just like automatically buy it. Car gives you more apps, but some of the apps are very useful, like the Styx Coin Invincible Car app. But again, it's random. You can't guarantee that you'll get that app when you want it. And her max ability is super useful. Is not super useful, but it's super unuseful. She randomly takes an enemy out of the fight in a dungeon, in a room, but I believe that ability only triggers like once per dungeon run. So you can't use this on a boss, otherwise she'd be overpowered and broken. So it's not that good. Tappy gives you invincible boxes, where when you open a box and you basically get a Super Mario star that makes you invincible, which is really good. But that's only for when you actually come across a box to open. So obviously on the boss fights it's great, but the problem is you have to get to the boss fight first to really benefit from her ability, which if you're already struggling, you're probably not getting to the boss fights very often. In the first part of the game, she's probably super useful, probably actually next to Swamp, just because of the crate ability and more money. If you're really struggling in the first part of the game, Tappy's probably a second best choice. But in part 2, the post game, she really stops being useful, because you have to get to that second part of the game to really benefit from her. And I don't think she works at all in the Marv fight in stage 1 or stage 2, because there's really no crates in the Marv fight, so then she's absolutely useless. Ray's more reliable because he gets the car, which I'm actually going to show you. This is probably one of the better ones for part 2. Also, the extra skill per floor really benefits. Rerolling the cafe can come in handy when you absolutely need to use it. His debt card ability actually sucks because that debt ball is not fun to deal with, and it restricts your movement, which this is a very heavy movement based game. But so this is the setup I would use for Winky Dink Part 2. Disaster Proof and Ray. And you'll see in a second when I go in here. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to show you a little bit about why this is useful. I was stuck on this for a couple of days, and this is what prompted me to make this video, because I couldn't find any guides to help me get through this easier. So you start with Ray's car. Once it gets destroyed, it goes away, but Ray's car is a little bit different than like the other car from like the Joblin area, is that his car has more health and does more damage per hit, but it can still be destroyed. So you do want to be careful about how much you use the car. With Disaster Proof, the ice vents in here won't hurt you. I don't believe they damage the car either. Enemies can still hit you when you're in the car, so you still want to like dodge the attacks. But other than that, you're kind of safe for the most part. So we have one of her. You see her bonus health. I got hit by icicle, which is a bad start. I hit her now. Oh, nah, she's killing me now. Yeah, see, it took a little bit, but the car was definitely helpful there. And I'll read a hockey stick. This wasn't a Ray room, but let's see, there we got free hands. Now she's one-handing the hockey stick, and now she's like swinging it a little bit faster. I believe it counts for this too. Poker. And this is Ray's room, which actually gave me the cloud, which is also super useful. I think this pillow too. Now it sucks I already got hit already. That does kind of suck for this run, but I can still save it. I'm actually starting out pretty well. There's the cloud attack coming in clutch. And you see the car is still here, even though I'm hitting a lot of the furniture and the enemies. So the cloud and the car is actually very good because it takes some of the damage away from the car if the cloud can score a stun lock hit on someone. We're gonna save our money. We're actually just gonna keep going. We're actually gonna get rid of this for the hockey stick. See if I can make it to the last room with just the car. Yeah, so she just went down like the sack of potatoes easily. You got an upcycle, double hockey sticks, which will probably upcycle that. That hockey stick is buffed. Also, the fire extinguishers in part 2 are super useful. In fact, I would probably take one of these. The fire one and the ice one are both very useful because the damage over time is very beneficial for this part. Unless you're really good at these rooms or you want the ally, I would actually skip these rooms because they're going to cost you more health if you suck like I do. So that's an easy skip for me. Yeah, so I got nailed in the car again. Yep, so the cloud just killed her off. My car is turning red, so it's about to die. But that room's actually down. And so see, here's the final room of Dungeon 1. I lost a couple hearts because I wasn't being super careful with my driving and my dodging. But my car is still here and it'll probably last for this fight. Maybe. We got 2 big bosses. Well, that's a pretty rough start, but I made it through. I'm still kind of in the danger zone right now. Alright, so we actually got Wind Flood to influence monsters. This is super useful. Some skills do have a higher chance of showing up in different dungeons. Like, I think, and also some skills show up more often combined with other skills. So like I often, if I don't pick Disaster Proof for Winky Dink Part 2, you'll often see this in Winky Dink Part 2. It's not guaranteed, but you're more likely to see it because the game is probably suggesting that this is useful for you. You should probably take this. Personal Cloud shows up for me a lot. This one also tends to show up in this dungeon a lot as well. Don't know why. Obviously, if I can get Team Player, we may very well just straight up be set to beat the boss. What makes the boss so hard for Winky Dink Part 2 is that the boss has like 2 stages. So he has a ton of HP and he's really hard to kill. Plus he's obviously summoning ads the entire time that you have to dodge and avoid. The only time I've beaten it was when I had Team Player and the Friends abilities, because I had an enemy charmed with me. Because that saved me a lot of damage from being hit. Otherwise, I would have straight up just failed that dungeon like easily. I would have failed. I don't think I would have beaten it. He still hit me. Yeah, I'm about to die. Oh, but I think I got her charmed, which that may have just saved me. I don't have Team Player, but I'm down to 1 health. He's stuck in my own head. Oh, I got the first person debuff. But we're still gonna go with this right now, because we kind of have to. I want to see if I can still get through this with what I have. $1 away from another upgrade, but I am 2 hearts higher. We don't need the club weapon ability. We don't want to buy weapons. We just want to focus on health. We will actually go with. I kind of really want that, but we're only 2 hits away from dying. So we're gonna buy the extra health and a half. Is gonna be more beneficial. Oh yeah. I'm about to die because I'm stuck in this mode. Yeah, so I did pretty bad. But with a little more like careful car dodging, you could easily get through the entire first part of that dungeon with Ray's car, and probably through most of the second part. because the car doesn't go away when you complete the dungeon. You can still take the car with you as long as it stays up. Just make sure you carry it with you from room to room. Or even if you feel comfortable without it, still take it and then leave it at like the first room. Go all the way to the last dungeon, but don't complete it. Then go back and get the car, do the final room. So you could also do it that way as well to try to preserve the car longer if you're good at dodging, but you're still having trouble with like the tougher enemies in the boss rooms or the boss fight. So yeah, raise ability is pretty useful, and in combination with the disaster proof, you can keep the car a lot longer than you would normally, and that can help you get through this part 2 where everything is super difficult. But this video was a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to make this video to hopefully help someone out there. I will leave the comments open for if anyone wants to like leave a comment, ask a question. They're also stuck in the game and need help. It seems like a lot of people were kind of stuck, so hopefully this video can help someone. If I can just help one person, I feel like it's worth it making this video, as poorly done as it was. But that's all the time I have, so I hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like or a comment, I would appreciate it. Subscribe if you don't mind. And until the next video, I will see you all next time. Thank you.